Okay, well, the Prime Minister, as we were discussing there, laid out an ambitious agenda for the next few weeks and months. And part of that plan is to have King Charles come to Ottawa at the end of May to deliver the government speech from the throne. And of course, the other big meeting next week with U.S. President Donald Trump. So with all of that on the agenda, let's bring in our party insiders to discuss all of this. Greg McEachern is a former Liberal ministerial advisor. Fred Delory is a former Conservative campaign manager. And back with us again on a regular Friday slot, Melanie Richer is a former communications director for the NDP. It's good to see you all, gang. Happy, I don't know, what, day 5 after the election. Greg, let's start with, the Prime Minister today. Cost of living, communities need to be safe. The King is coming. Cabinet is going to be sworn in. Meeting with Trump. Free trade by Canada Day. Middle class tax up by Canada Day. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, and Pierre Poilievre. We're going to call a by-election for you as soon as you're ready to go. What do you make of the opening moves here?
Who needs a throne speech?
Well, when you just had an election, it's all pretty well there.
Well,
right?
no, yeah, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. The King and I and everything else.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I noted that on this channel earlier, and I'll head to kind of the shallow end of the pool. There was a long conversation with a PR expert about the joke that the Prime Minister made about Champagne. Did Champagne ask you if he's staying on as finance minister? Right. And I will say that I know that there was some perceived difficulty between the media and the Prime Minister. I think people might perhaps be getting used to his sense of humor, which is quite dry, but it's very funny.
I thought it was a funny moment.
I thought it was a great moment.
Yeah,
I thought it was a great moment. And look, we're coming out of we're coming out of a super partisan time. So perhaps it's good that was the tone that was set. It was very businesslike. He took lots of questions. I think this is not like a change election where there has been a massive change of parties, but it is very much a change election because of the issues of 2025. We've exhausted this topic a lot, but are very different than last year. And I think that press conference really set the mood.
Fred, I was struck. It was all focus, no fluff. You know what I mean? Depending how you feel about the monarchy and all these sorts of things, it was like, these are the big things we're going to do, and here's a timeline to get at them. And it was very businesslike compared to what we're used to over the last couple of years.
Just to talk about the monarchy side of it, I thought that was fantastic to bring the King here. I've been critical at times of the monarchy and that we have this, foreign, feels distant monarchy. So to actually invite them to do it, I thought it was great. Watching Carney's press conference today, hard to disagree with some of the stuff he wants to do, like axe the tax, build the homes,
stop the crime and fix the budget. Yeah, a lot of that.
Speaking of no fluff, I feel like I've heard a lot of this before. So I don't know if he's just carbon copying or stealing a lot of good conservative policies, which hard to argue with if he does it and can implement it. But on the other thing that happened today about the by-election, I think it is classy of him to say that he will call the by-election as soon as that opportunity arises. He doesn't have to do that, right? He has 6 months to do it. I think it would be petty if he didn't do it that way. But it's good to see that he's not, and that we will have, the leader of the Conservative Party will be back in the House by the fall.
It was an interesting moment of grace, Mel. I thought that I don't know how reciprocal it might have been, given the tone of the campaign going through things. But what did you make of what we heard from Mark Carney today?
Yeah, I found it interesting. I'll maybe say ditto to what Fred just said about giving Pierre Poilievre the opportunity to run right away. Of course, if he didn't, it wouldn't be a good look. But I think it's interesting because it also gives, I think, Pierre Poilievre a path to staying on as leader, maybe a little bit easier than if he were to wait a little bit. You could tell by the way that he said, we had a conversation, that there's maybe a indication that we're going to see adults in the room a little bit more, particularly as it relates maybe to the conversation that the Prime Minister is going to be having with President Trump. Of course, in the campaign, we saw all political parties say they wanted to be on Team Canada. They were going to help the new Prime Minister have those discussions. So I found that was an interesting maybe piece of conversation from his press conference. And everything else, I think, I think Greg said it, the change of talking about stuff and moving quickly, I think was a lot of what we saw from the last Liberal government that ended up getting them in trouble. We heard Mark Carney say in the election often that he wanted to act and he wanted to act right away. So I think we're seeing that. We saw that in his press conference with the timing of how quickly things are going to move. And I think that was a big sign today.
Yeah, very specific measures on very specific timelines, including like just the budget. And I know people quibble about balancing operational versus capital, but we're going to get the rate of spending increase down to this, and we're going to get it done within 3 years. So it's just interesting, Greg, to see that sort of a focus on just the nuts and bolts of actual governing and budgeting, which is kind of the vibe he gave during the campaign. But just on this promise to let Pierre Poilievre get back into he's going to run in Battle River Crowfoot, right? Because Damien Carrick is going to step aside for him. Why do you think he did that? Is it because he thinks it's the right thing to do, or do you think it's because the Liberals would really like to make sure that Pierre Poilievre stays on?
I think people can confuse strength with stubbornness, or being mean with being strong. And actually, it's really easy to be mean. It's the easiest route to be a bully, to insult. I'm not sure if the situation was reversed, that the Conservative leader would have done the same thing for a Liberal leader. But I think right now, the most important thing is that it reflects the mood of the country. People do not have a lot of time right now for the baloney of, there was every little thing that Justin Trudeau said would be weaponized, and someone would criticize it right away. And day in, day out, this happened. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But after a while, it exhausts people. And perhaps that's the point. You want to get people moving away from politics, less interested, and only the really hardcore people stay with it. But as Fred said, it's a classy move. It's the right thing to do. It's about our democracy. I will say, though, I don't know what message it says that a Conservative Party that was rejected by Canadians and is considered to be very much based in Alberta, a province where the Premier is now speculating about separatism, that an Alberta-born Conservative leader who has been elected here in Ottawa for 20 years and lost his seat, goes back to deepest Alberta in order to have a safe seat to come back. I'm not sure that is sending a great message about how the Conservatives want to rebuild. It is sending a message, damn, I lost my seat. I need to get a seat quick. And who's going to step up? And I know they did it quickly because a lot of prominent MPs were coming out with big, proclamations of loyalty, but I think they were getting scared. Well, if you're that loyal, will you step down? And a lot of them didn't want to.
Well, and Andrew Scheer is going to be connecting with us in just a little bit, so we'll interrupt this conversation for that conversation. But Fred, the goal is to get your leader into the Parliament as quickly as possible, right? He's going to miss this session for sure, but unless something goes crazy in this Alberta riding, Pierre Poilievre will be back in Parliament by the fall.
Yeah, it's a very strong Conservative riding over the last number of elections. I would say it's the strongest Conservative riding in the country. So, it's good that Carney said he would do it right away. He will miss this session. But whenever he's elected this summer, we will be back by September. If Carney, dragged this out, if he did do the 6-month thing, it could be next January or February, which I think is just off-brand for Carney, and would look like you're scared of him. It also send the message that you don't want him in the House. You don't want the leader of the Conservative Party in the House. And I have to give credit to Damien Carrick, who's been an MP since 2019. He's 6 months away from qualifying for his pension, and he's given up his seat for his leader. He obviously has full confidence in his leader. I think that's a big move that he's made. He's a young guy with a young family, so to do that is, clearly he has strong, loyalty to the leader, which is a good place to be right now.